Hey everybody, I wanted to do a quick tutorial to show you how you can sync your Powerteacher Pro gradebook and your Canvas courses together so you can pass all of your grades from Canvas to Powerteacher Pro with the click of just a couple of buttons. So that should speed up entering grades that you have collected through Canvas into your gradebook in Powerteacher Pro. It's not complicated, but there are very specific rules that you have to follow in order for this to work, and if you do any one of these things incorrectly, it's not going to work for you. So I wanted to just do this tutorial to kind of walk you through the process. The first thing that you need to do is import your grade categories from Powerteacher Pro into Canvas. So I guess the first thing you have to do is make sure that your categories in Powerteacher Pro are correct and how you want them. To do that, you're going to have to do that for each course that you have in Canvas that you're going to want to pass grades back. So thank you to Mrs. Reed for allowing me to use her course to explain all this. So I'm going to choose one of Mrs. Reed's courses, and you're going to go to your Assignments tab in the navigation to the left of that course. You can see that Canvas creates an assignment group for you just called Assignments. You can create other groups, but if you're going to pass the grades back, the groups, the assignment groups, have to be the ones imported from Powerteacher Pro. So that's the first step. So we're going to go ahead and do that by clicking this More Options button up here next to the New Assignment button. When you click that, Import Assignment Groups with this little piece of paper symbol with the arrow is one of your choices. So we're going to click Import Assignment Groups. It's going to give us a little warning message, and we're going to say Add. So what that's going to do is go out to your Powerteacher Pro gradebook, find the categories that you have there, and import them. To see how the process is working, and it doesn't happen instantly, you're going to have to give it a second, but you do have this monitoring and reporting option in your navigation. If you click on that, that's going to open up this screen, and it's going to let you know that you requested at this time to import your assignment groups from Powerteacher Pro. If we scroll over, you will see this little symbol means it's in the queue. So it's waiting for this action to take place. When it is done, it will turn into a green success check mark. If for some reason something went wrong and it didn't work, you would get either the error message or the failed message. And when you click on this little drop down arrow, it would tell you why it did not work. But if you do everything right, you should get the green check mark. So I'm going to wait a minute until these actually show up before the next step. Okay, that did not take long at all. It took less than a minute for Kara's assignment groups to come over, her categories to come over, and here you can see here's the categories that Mrs. Reed uses in her classes. So you can note this is the Canvas assignment group that was already created. The imported assignment groups are going to have this symbol next to them. Those are the only assignment groups that you can use if you're going to be syncing grades. Every assignment that you give in Canvas, if you're going to want to send those grades to Powerteacher Pro, you're going to need to put them in one of these assignment groups, and I will show you how that works. You can do that a couple of ways. If you already have assignments under this assignment heading, so if Kara would have had a number of assignments here and she now wants them to be part of these other groups so she can sync them, you could literally just click and drag the activity down into its correct assignment group. But let's say we're going to go ahead and create a new assignment. And this is how you would do that in order to make everything work. You obviously start by clicking on the blue Create New Assignment button. And there are essentially 4 things that you have to do in order for the sync to work. First, you have to give it a name. So I'm just going to say it's testing. Your name of the assignment has to be 30 characters or less. Now, I would recommend it be 30 characters or less regardless. Why you don't need a title that long, but make sure your title is 30 characters or less. Here's where you would type your instructions for the assignment. I'm just going to type some gibberish there so we can move on. Scrolling down, how many points is that assignment worth? So whatever, how many points. Here's our assignment group. Here's where we have to put the assignment in whatever category we want it to end up in Powerteacher Pro. So assignments, again, that was the generic Canvas group. That one's not going to work for us. So here are the ones that we just imported. So if I say this is a homework assignment, I can select that. And when I choose to sync my grades, it's going to send it to my homework category in Powerteacher Pro. You select your submission type. So I'm just making this up. Let's say I'm going to collect it through paper. You have to have this box checked. It is the default. So you would just make sure you don't uncheck it, but obviously sync to PowerSchool is what we want to happen, so we want to make sure that that is checked. And then when we go to assign, we have to give it a due date in order for the sync to work. I've also noticed that sometimes it gets a little tricky if you don't assign something to everyone. If you assign it to different sections at different times, sometimes the sync doesn't like that. So if at all possible, try to make sure you're assigning this to everyone. And if there are certain students that are exempt from that activity, you can mark them as exempt in Powerteacher Pro. All right, so to recap, the 4 things that you have to do in order for the sync to work: your name of your assignment has to be 30 characters or less. You have to put it in the correct assignment group. Canvas calls them assignment groups. Powerteacher Pro calls them categories, but it's the same thing. So put it in the correct category. I chose homework. Make sure this box is checked. The Sync to PowerSchool button is checked. And you have a due date. If you do those 4 things correctly, when you go to sync your grades, it should work. So I'm going to go ahead and hit save and publish for now on this activity. Now keep in mind, the sync doesn't happen automatically. I've just set it up to sync. You have to go in later and tell it when you want the sync to actually run, when you want the grades to actually be sent. So if we go back into our assignment groups, you will now see the assignment I created under the homework category. Again, just to give you an example, now that I have an assignment there, if you wanted to move an assignment from one group to another, it's literally as easy as clicking and dragging it into the category you want it in, and that changes the settings to put it in the new assignment group. I do want to go over some symbols to make sure you understand everything that's happening here. So we're looking at this assignment. This green check mark circle right here, that's just showing you that the assignment is published. So students are able to see that. If that is unpublished, it would look like this, and you can switch it on and off just at the click of that button. So we're going to leave that published. This icon is showing that when you choose to sync your grades, this is one of the assignments that will be sent. So you might be doing things in Canvas that you don't want to sync to Powerteacher Pro. In that case, you would not select that Sync to PowerSchool button that we showed you earlier. Or if you change your mind, you can literally just come in here and deselect that like that. And so when you go to sync your grades, this particular assignment will not be sent. But I'm going to turn that back on. So this is all set to sync. So my students have done this assignment, and now I'm ready to send those grades to your gradebook in Powerteacher Pro. To do that, you just go to your gradebook, so grades, and now you can see my assignment is here. Once students have done it, their grades will show up here. You just hit export and sync to Powerteacher Pro, and when you hit that, you'll get a warning message. You just say yes, and that will send your grades from Canvas to Powerteacher Pro, and it will send all of the grades that you currently have this option selected for. So once you have a number of assignments here, a lot of them are going to have this symbol selected. Every time it's going to look at that and send those grades over. So if it's something that's already in your gradebook, it's just going to check that assignment again and see if there have been any changes to the grades. So let's say you gave a test, you synced your grades, so you sent them over to Powerteacher Pro, but there was a student that was absent. A couple days later, they come back, they make up the test, but the first time you sent the grades, they didn't have a grade to send. The next time you sync your grades, it will send over that student's grade and leave all the other students as they were. Now, one thing I will say is once you're happy with your grades in Powerteacher Pro, all the grades are finalized, all the makeup students have made up their work, I would come into Canvas and deselect the sync so it's not checking that assignment anymore. A couple of reasons for that. Sometimes it can take up to 10 hours for your grades to sync over to Powerteacher Pro. It just depends on how many jobs are in the queue waiting to go. And I have a theory that it also depends on how many assignments that it's looking at to send to Powerteacher Pro. So once you're happy with your grades in the Powerteacher Pro gradebook, just go ahead and deselect this option in Canvas, so Canvas will no longer look at that assignment and leave it alone in Powerteacher Pro. The other reason that I suggest you do that is sometimes we make changes to the grades in Powerteacher Pro. So let's say you decide that after sending your grades over, maybe there was a bad test question or a question that nobody did very well on, maybe you didn't cover it enough, and so you've decided to give everybody an extra point on their test, or maybe you decided to curve things later. If you make those changes in Powerteacher Pro but don't make them in Canvas, and you still have the option to sync the grades selected, the next time you sync your grades, it's going to send back all the original grades. So any alterations you made in Powerteacher Pro are going to be ignored, and the original grades are going to be sent back. So again, my suggestion, just turn this off once you're happy with the grades in Powerteacher Pro. The same thing is going to happen in your monitoring and reporting when you choose to sync your grades. I didn't actually do it because I don't want to mess up Kara's actual gradebook. But when you choose to sync your grades, you will get another job title here in your monitoring and reporting. And instead of assignment groups over here, I think it will say grades or assignment grades, something like that. It'll give you the date and time that you requested that job to be run. It will be in the queue, this queue symbol, until it's complete. And if it works, you'll have that green check mark. If it doesn't work, you will have an error message. And when you click on this drop-down menu, it'll tell you why it didn't work. Almost always, it's because you don't have it in an appropriate category. So be aware of that. I hope that makes sense. If that seems overly complicated, reach out to me. I will walk you through setting up your categories on the first time you sync. Once you get doing it, it makes life so much easier, and it's really not that complicated, but there are just specific rules you have to follow. So again, just to recap, the first thing you have to do is import your grades or your grade categories from Powerteacher Pro. So to do that, you're in your assignments, you click on the more options, and you click import assignment groups. Then you have to make sure all of your assignments that you are wanting to send over to Powerteacher Pro are in one of the imported groups. If it's already an assignment that you've created, just click and drag it into the correct group. If it's a new assignment, make sure your title is 30 characters or less. Make sure that you're putting it in the appropriate category or assignment group. Make sure the box that says Sync to PowerSchool is checked. Make sure you have a due date. And then again, the grades will not sync until you go to your gradebook and export them to Powerteacher Pro. Hope that's helpful. Again, if you have any questions, reach out to me and I'd be glad to walk you through it.